Welcome to the Move with Motus Podcast. My name is Dr. Christopher Ellis, and joining me is personal trainer John Williams. We are the owners of Motus Personal Training and Physiotherapy. Together, we will discuss any topic you can think of when it comes to training and rehab. From the carnivore diet to hip impingement, you can be sure that all your questions will be answered. Enjoy this week's episode.
Episode 1.
Let's do it.
The carnivore diet.
Are you ready?
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm excited.
This is like probably one of the biggest changes in perspective I've had on anything in the fitness industry in maybe 2 years.
Same thing. It blew my mind wide open too.
Yeah.
I was already kind of going down that path, learning about cholesterol and things like that. And then I got into this. It's like, oh my God, this makes so much sense.
Yeah. So maybe we should start with like personal results so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll dive a little bit into the science.
Okay.
Make everybody real excited. And then go make it sound like we're crazy afterwards.
Yeah. All right.
So let's start with you because
okay.
you've been on it for longer.
Yeah, I started 2 months ago. Prior to that, I had been kind of slowly, steadily putting on weight. I had a daughter. My wife had a daughter 2 years ago. And I think since then, I'd been sort of slowly gaining. And I don't know. I couldn't figure out why. I hadn't really changed much. I started feeling like crap kind of. I was... over a year ago, developed kind of a chronic cough and a wheeze, and my eyes would water a lot. And I was just, it's Florida. I'm allergic to trees or something like that. And,
yeah.
Couldn't really figure it out. I thought I had corona at one point.
Allergic to trees?
Yeah, apparently I am allergic to a bunch of trees.
Okay.
I don't know. There's all kinds of crap down here. And I live in the woods, as you know. But it was just a nuisance. I was just bloated and just wheezing. If I'd laid on my side, it was so it sounded like it was really annoying. It was terrible. And I was kind of desperate to get over it. But I was just I'm allergic to Florida, and that's what I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So when
I think at some point, too, you thought you had COVID. And you were maybe I'm just have COVID for ever.
Yeah, I thought I was patient zero at one point because
it
started November prior to COVID. So it was a little early. So I don't know. But I got tested 6 times, always negative. So anyways... So I've been on it for 2 months. I've dropped 19 pounds as of now. I feel like I'm 25 again. My wheeze is gone. The watery eye thing is gone. The cough is gone. It's I feel like I'm back to normal.
Yeah.
So,
new human.
Yeah, it's amazing. I play hockey. I'm playing hockey twice a week and I'm skating better than I ever have. At one point it was just bending over to tie my skates. So I had to hold my breath. As my buddy Guillermo calls it, going underwater.
I've never heard that before. That's so perfect.
So that's all gone down. I can now breathe when tying my skates.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so those are my results.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, so I'm only 2 weeks in now. Mm-hmm. In the first week, I'll just say briefly why I was going on it. So I'm not I don't need to be on a diet. Personally, I'm pretty strict, not strict about what I eat, but I've never had a problem with that. I'm always in a constant state of trying to gain weight, trying to get bigger, stronger, and I'm always just struggling with that. I know. I'm sorry.
You're one of those guys that can sit and still have a 6-pack.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's that's not, I've always wanted to get bigger, and back in November, I got a lot bigger doing a couple different strength training programs. I was up to 202, but I was 15 point something% body fat, which is a little high for me. But I was definitely happy with finally I was okay, I can gain some size. But I would keep getting real tired after lunch and dinner. I have lunch at the gym and then I have clients later that afternoon. I'm yawning through half of the sessions and I'm getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I'm very disciplined about my sleep. This doesn't make sense. I should have plenty of energy to make it through the day. And I'm eating a high carb diet, lots of whole grain, whole wheat pasta.
As we're told to do.
Lots of fruit, a lot of veg in there too. And I'm thinking okay, I'm doing everything right. Why am I so tired? And so you told me about the carnivore diet, and I've heard about it in the past, Joe Rogan, some other guests that he's had on the podcast. I was like, you know what? We did a podcast that ended up getting deleted about this topic. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And now I meal prep every week, so I had to switch up the meal prep a little bit. So the first week didn't go the way I wanted to go just because I didn't prepare well enough.
You weren't in the rhythm yet.
Yeah, I didn't quite figure out how much I needed, to cook, how I needed to cook it, so on and so forth. So I ended up losing a whole bunch of weight. I think I lost like 5 or 6 pounds, but I dropped like 3% body fat. I went from like 191, 192 down to 185, but I was 12.5% body fat, which is the lowest I've ever been. And I started feeling really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sleeping like a rock at night, and I sleep really well. But then it was like all of a sudden my dreams are crazy vivid. I wake up in the morning like I had 20 hours of sleep. And then throughout the whole day, I'm coasting. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
Perfectly, like you said, just very neutral energy
It's
levels.
like stable energy. It's crazy.
Completely stable. And, I'm working out a lot. I started a new like strength training program, and I feel good. Now, I haven't done any high intensity like cardiovascular stuff. I'm considering going on a run today to sort of test that out. But feel good in my workouts. No like energy drops, nothing like that. No like I do a set of something, I'm like gassed afterwards. Like I can keep going. But after the first week, like I said, lost about 6-7 pounds, which I was not happy about, but then lost all that body fat. So I was like, okay, that's a good sign. And the next week, this past week, I did my meal prep way better, cooked way more food, was way more prepared and ready to go, made my breakfasts like twice the size that they were the previous week. And I'm up 2.5 pounds from the previous week, and I'm still down another 0.5% of body fat.
Incredible.
Like, I put on my shirt this morning, and that's why I ended up doing my weight again. I was like, oh man, it's a little tighter.
Yeah. Get a
the
little
shoulders
snug.
and stuff. Like,
There you go.
I feel good. So I did I was like, I'm down 0.5% of body fat. I'm at 12.2 right now, which is the lowest I've ever been.
How are you measuring?
I'm using a BIA.
Okay.
The
handheld one? Okay.
Yeah.
Those are pretty accurate.
Yeah. And what I usually, just to a little off topic, but with those things, I use it as a sort of a baseline. Like, that's the only thing I've used to track my body fat other than the bod pod once when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have that baseline of one thing, like, I don't think 12.2% is my actual body fat, but it's probably pretty close.
Right.
And I'll know whether or not it's going up and down.
Yeah.
based on that measurement.
I use the withing scale. And I found that hydration level will affect the fat percentage too.
Yeah.
But if you track it over time, you get, okay, my hydration's here, so you know how much that impacts it. So you get a kind of feel for it.
Right.
I just use the belt test. I'm down like 2 holes on my belt.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. That's what matters to me.
So when it comes to the carnivore diet, let's just talk about like what we eat in a day.
Sure.
Let's go through you first, and then I'll talk briefly about what I've been doing.
For me, it's meat, fish, eggs, dairy, right?
Fish, eggs, dairy.
Yep. So one of the caveats is if you're not taking in fruit and veg, you have to have liver or supplement because you need like that, dose of nutrients. So it's not just about the macros; you need the micros, and the liver is like a power. If you look at charts of like liver versus most vegetables, it's a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there is a lot of vitamin A, and you can get toxic in vitamin A. So you only eat so much liver per week. My wife and I do liver like once a week, basically.
I've been doing 2 ounces a day based on some recommendations
Yep.
I've seen.
Yep.
I think I got to do some micronutrient calculations and see if that's justified or not.
Yeah. I haven't seen the literature on it, but I also take Heart and Soil supplements, the desiccated organs. So I feel like I got all my bases covered.
Yeah.
I'm eating twice a day. So I do intermittently fast because I'm trying to trip ketosis for even more fat burn too. But honestly, 2 meals is kind of all I really need. I feel super satiated on this diet. And I don't, weigh stuff, count stuff. I just eat till I'm satisfied, even full, and then eat a second time. And then I fast usually about 12 hours or so, sometimes 16, up to 16 hours.
And what do these 2 meals look like? What exactly is usually in them? Obviously, you talked about the basic things, but let's go through like 2 a day in the life.
Pile of meat. So, which has been good because I actually really like to barbecue and I've gotten into smoking. So sometimes I'll like smoke, like I smoked a pork butt a couple weeks ago and it lasted me like a good 4 days. And I made multiple meals off of that. I got creative with it, threw eggs on top of it and stuff like that. So, eggs is a big part, some organic eggs like those Nellies, those bright orange yolks. I love those. Just for lunch today, I had some of those plus some salmon roe. I love salmon roe. My wife works at a sushi bar, so she brings it home for me.
There you go.
And then some sausage, like quality sausage too, not just like heavily processed stuff. Some beef ribs and was it lamb burger? Yeah. So I'm trying to get as much variety as I can in the meat world, which is kind of nice because now I'm looking for all these exotic cuts. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it's not just ribeye. So I definitely eat a lot of ribeye because it's freaking delicious. But that's the kind of typical day for me.
Yeah, and for me, because I'm very like standardized when it comes to my diet, I always just for the past 2.5 years or so, I've always just done the meal prep thing, had a very set diet, so it kind of transformed to the same thing now. So each meal I try to switch it up a little bit, but it's not crazy varied, although it probably should be varied just a little more. So usually for breakfast, it's 4 eggs scrambled, beef sausage, and 4 strips of bacon. Then I'll have a little bit of liver in there too, which I'm not a huge fan of, unfortunately. Yeah. So I just try to gulp that down as quickly as possible and then move on.
Yeah, just kind of chew your way through it.
Yep.
It's all a bunch of water.
And then lunch and dinner is usually about the same thing, although dinner I'll add a little bit more. It's usually just steak. Usually some high-fat cut of steak like a ribeye, chuck pot roast, something like that. Obviously, this diet's kind of expensive, so I try to be as cost-conscious as possible.
Except for liver. No one wants liver, so it's cheap.
That's true. And then I'll do chicken thighs. And then that's the same thing, lunch and dinner, but I'll throw in some shrimp in there or something else for dinner as well when I don't have to quite be so crazy about the meal prep.
Yeah. So we should probably get into some of the ideas behind it, like why is it a thing? Why is this a good idea? Or so people would say a bad idea?
Yeah, well, it's 0 carbs, so let's just dive into that.
Yeah, well, okay. So first of all, carbs are non-essential. All the other macros are, but carbs are non-essential. I mean, there's people who've been doing this diet for 20 years, so they're not dead.
Yep.
But you were told to eat carbs for energy, and your body does burn carbs for energy, but it also can burn fats for energy.
Yep.
So here's one of the ideas, is that fats burn cleaner than carbs. Carbs tend to leave a lot of oxidative stress in the body, which is bad, right? And fats burn a lot cleaner, and you can sustain more energy with fats. So that's idea number one. So I like to use the analogy of the dual fuel generator. I was telling you about that because I have one sitting in my shed right now because I live in Florida and we have hurricanes. So generators are important. So a dual fuel generator can burn either propane or gasoline. If you have one, you want to burn your propane first because the gasoline burns dirty and you have to take out the carburetor, clean it. So if you can just do propane, you're better off. It's just like that in the body, right? You want to burn just the fats. It's just better for overall health.
Yeah, just a quick, almost, thought experiment research you could do. And I'm not sure how scientific this is, but I've just been thinking about it based on the way I've been cooking and some of the things I've noticed. Cook like some pasta and some sauce and like leave some remnants in the pot for the next day. And then go try to clean that pot. And then cook some bacon and some eggs and some sausage in a pan with some butter. Leave it for a day and then go try to clean it the next day. Which one of those two things is easier to clean? It's always the one with the fat and the oil and not the carbs and the sugar. And I noticed that it was so easy to clean all my dishes. I'm like, there's nothing stuck to the pan. I'm almost thinking to myself, like, what's going on inside my body with all those things that are getting stuck to these pans that I can't. I'm strumming my ass off trying to get it done.
Well, it turns out it doesn't quite work that way. I
wasn't sure if it did, but I was like, still, at least it's something I was thinking about.
That kind of segues into another good conversation is the whole cholesterol thing, because fats don't float around in your bloodstream. They have to be transported. And what transports them is lipoproteins, specifically HDL and LDL. So when you hear people talk about cholesterol, they say, oh, my LDL, my HDL. LDL is bad, HDL is good. That's a gross oversimplification. So first of all, LDL is not cholesterol. It's a bubble. Think of it as a bubble that carries around cholesterol and delivers it to organs. By the way, cholesterol is needed for the body. You don't have cholesterol, you die. So it's not that cholesterol is bad. That's a very simple way of thinking about it. You need cholesterol. So when people say, oh, I've got the bad cholesterol, what they're really saying is the LDL molecule, there's a protein on it called ApoB. And then when it goes to an organ, there's a receptor. It recognizes that ApoB protein. It says, okay, come into my cell, and I'll take on that cholesterol to do its functions that it needs to do. What can happen is that the ApoB protein can be damaged, and then the cell receptor doesn't recognize it anymore, and then it's left to float around and just circulate in the bloodstream. So that's the bad stuff, because the body's like, well, we have to do something with this, and then that lays it down into the arterial walls, and that creates plaques and stroke and death. So that's the stuff to be afraid of. So then the question's like, what damages this ApoB protein? It turns out vegetable oils, and I'm talking about polyunsaturated fatty acids, and sugars. That's what damages the molecule. So That's something to know about. All right. So, because everyone freaks out, oh, what, your cholesterol is going to be through the roof. Yes, it will go up, but not the circulating stuff that gets stuck to the wall. Right. It's going to be delivered to the organs, which is good. We want that.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing about cholesterol.
Yeah, I mean, just on I just think so deeply about, okay, like we've been told 50% carbs, 50%, 25% fat, 25% protein, but our muscles need protein to rebuild. Why are we limiting it to 25%? We need fat as fuel. Why are we limiting it to 25%? Why are we placing this giant emphasis on carbohydrates when in the natural world, carbohydrates aren't that present?
Right.
Proteins and fats are way more present.
Yeah. If you think about what our ancestors ate, they probably go out and hunt and kill something and eat that, and then every now and then they come back empty-handed and they are left to eat fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
And that's the other thing too. It's like, also when we talk about fruits, like we're not even just talking about the carbs that most people eat, which is pasta, bread, and so on and so forth, which is all created by man.
We're talking glucose.
Yeah. And we're, like, fruits aren't even as existent in the natural world as we can create pasta and rice and bread.
Right.
So there's something, fudge with these numbers a little bit. And you did some research, there was some payoffs that happened in the research world in the sugar industry.
Oh, yes. So the sugar industry, what did I say it was? In the 50s, I think it was?
Yeah.
Paid, I think it was like $50,000. It wasn't even that much money to some journal. I think it was New England Journal of Medicine to say that sugar is not to blame. Saturated fat is to blame for all this weight gain and obesity. And if you dig deeper, you can go down a huge rabbit hole with this. There's a guy named Ansel Keys that really pushed that theory. If you're interested in learning more about that, check out Dr. Kate Shanahan. That's her whole sort of diatribe is about that. She's fantastic. We've been basically lied to. That's what I feel.
Yeah. And I think we should do a deeper dive into some other things. We're running a little short on time for today, but there's some other things I want to talk about. But one thing I wanted to discuss, which was a concern I had going into this diet, was like cravings. I'm a big sweets guy. Love my cookies, love my cake. And I was worried going into this that was going to be an issue for me. Now, I know where I'm at now, but from your perspective, has that been an issue? Like you feel like you really need, a piece of bread or...
I was born hypoglycemic, which is kind of like a precursor to pre-diabetes. So it's like a pre-diabetes. And the recommendation to my parents was to not give me sugar for like, I don't know, first 7 years of my life. I didn't have like a piece of candy or something like that. Mm-hmm. So when I first did have any kind of candy, it was like disgusting to me. It was foreign to me. It was like almost bitter. It was so sweet,
Yeah.
So to this day, like I can't eat like cake. Oh, it's disgusting. Like icing, it'll like nauseate me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which has kind of been a good thing, I guess. But so I've never really been into sweets. I guess the only sweet I really like is like dark chocolate. Mm-hmm. Love dark chocolate.
Now, what about some things you've had to cut out that you thought might have been a problem? Was there anything on that list, or you kind of went into this, you were like, this is going to work for me?
I'm only 2 months in. I'm loving it. I'm not craving anything. I will say we went to a Brazilian steakhouse the other day, and they had this like cauliflower dish that looked pretty good. I was like, oh, that would be, I would like to try that. But it wasn't like, oh my God, I need it.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, like people don't like vegetables. The reason kids don't like vegetables, they love bacon, right?
Fair enough.
My kids don't eat the vegetables. There may be a reason to it. So let's go into that real quick. We got a few minutes left. So I love this idea, right, that, nothing wants to be eaten, right? Animals don't want to be eaten. Plants don't want to be eaten. But animals...
People don't want to be eaten.
Yeah, obviously we don't. And so you develop defenses. We developed houses, guns, knives, things like that.
Where are you going with this?
And animals have developed, ways to attack. They can claw you, bite you, they can run away, right? But, plants are stuck in the ground. So over millennia, they've developed chemical defenses. Not all of them, and it's on a spectrum, but you can't just eat any plant. You can't just eat any berry. There's mushrooms that will kill you if you eat them. There was some guy who like picked a bunch of mushrooms in his nursing home and like killed everybody.
Yeah,
just not knowing. So you can't just eat any plant, but you pretty much can eat any animal. So, but there is definitely a spectrum. Some things are more toxic than others. Some things are pretty benign, and I think there's individual differences as well. And for me, it seems like I'm super, super sensitive to anything that's wheat, gluten, heavy starches. Those things really upset me. Mm-hmm. And I think that removing that, I think that's what took care of all this wheezing and coughing. I think it was affecting my lungs.
Yeah, and I didn't have too many like physical problems on the diet that I was having before, but every once in a while my stomach would get a little uncomfortable, stuff like that. Haven't had any problems like that. But when it comes to the, have I missed anything as a result of this diet the past 2 weeks? I know that's not that long of a period of time, but like I said, I would have my sweets, I'd have that stuff, and I always ate a pretty good diet, so I would allow myself to indulge a little bit. And I thought that was going to be a big issue coming off of this.
Let me guess. Not an issue.
Not an issue at all. I had a couple Reese's cups like on Sunday, but I bought like a dozen donuts just for the gym, just to like just being, I don't know, I just got a coffee. I was like, I'll just get some donuts for the employees and the staff and stuff. And end of the day, like I go and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll have one. Open up the box, like looked at them, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Close the box, walked away.
Yep. Well, so you've switched from burning carbs to fats. So you were like a carb burner for so long, right? So and those burned kind of fast. And then, you're like, I'm starving. And by the way, that's a symptom. If you get hangry, that's a sign that you are a carb burner and what is termed metabolically inflexible, right? So if you are able to easily switch back from fats to carbs, you're metabolically flexible. If you're not good at that, because people get so carb driven, it's almost like your body forgets how to do ketosis, which is the process of burning fats. Then you get hangry, and that's sort of a bad place to be. In fact, it's really being linked heavily,
especially for your loved ones.
Yes, and it's yes, and it's being linked to this metabolic inflexibility to people that don't do so well with COVID. By the way, so and who's dying a lot? Like obese Americans, diabetic Americans that are, carb drivers. So there's something there.
So we're going to continue going down this path. I think there's a few things that need to be discussed further in this. So I think we should do a part 2.
I agree.
You and I are going to like buy pretty much a cow together, like a butchered cow.
Yep.
Grass
Looking
fed,
forward to it.
And see how that goes. See if we can cut some costs and have that sort of conversation. I think there's things I need to do in my training to sort of test this diet a little further so I can give people a broader perspective on how things are going. I think I need to see if I can continue to gain weight and get stronger as well. And it'll be interesting to see how your progress continues with that. So I think there's definitely more of a conversation here to have, and we should probably do a part 2 on this as well.
Yeah, maybe we should check in a few months from now.
Yeah.
And see where our results stand.
Yeah, because I'm going to continue on.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason to stop.
This might be my new diet. I love it.
It's crazy. Well, that's it.
All right, let's shut it down.
There we go.
Episode 1 in the banks.
All right.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions you want answered, find us on Instagram at Motus Naples or send us an email. You can fill out a contact form on our website, which is motusnaples.com. Make sure to check out our blog and our shop as well, where there are downloadable programs that we'll continue to update. This is the Move with Motus podcast. We'll see you next week.